Hello everyone. Talk about for search engines right here. I'm sure most of us know how search engines work and are familiar with a lot of things that you can explore on the World Wide Web though. But I have right here is this this information right here of talking about for serving the web right here for the www, and then talk about for doing research, typical research. And it could also be the library, but a lot of times it sure seems that way that we probably have heard of other web browsers. One of them is also like Internet Explorer. There's also Firefox, and then there's also Chrome, and then there's also Edge. And so you got Opera, and then you also have your other search engines as well, and quite a few of them that like I use about maybe at least three or four of them. And at the time, you want to know too that how come that some of the hyperlinks that don't even work, including like some of the visible tabs, and also whenever most web developers, whenever they're going to be building a website, though, that it sure seems that way, that there are some websites that are not supported, with other things that have displayed. And so let's just say if we're talking about for like what you call a contact tab, and then also the navigation tab, and other stuff like that. And so it sure seems that way that whenever you go to these websites, that people may think as to where if you see something in the paper or anything else that you're going to be looking at, that they're going to tell you to go to this website and click on more information tab, or the best interest tab, or the home page, and navigate to the home page. And if you cannot find that on the site that you're on, and like anybody probably thinking is that if you've tried that, maybe from the phone, and this is all that you see right here. And so, like anybody say that, what does that really remind you of most of the time? Well, it reminds you of looking at a few. It looks like it reminds you of looking at a chart with the different thumbnail displays. And one of those thumbnail displays could also contain maybe a few rough draft sketches or something like that. So it's like, what does it usually mean if there's like any source of error in the research that you're working on? And so that's why I'm like, at the time, if you were to spend some time just to research about the engine that you're using, the search engine, and you're likely thinking too that there are some that are faster than others, but it sure seems that way. That you cannot see certain items that are displayed like on a newspaper, or even something that you buy. Maybe if it's a soda or something like that, or a gallon of milk that you buy, that you see these advertisements displayed. And that you see right here, I'll talk about for Planet Earth right here for 2025. And so I put together right here these I'm like, these sketches right here talk about you for the man in space right here. But I'm using this right here as an example of something like a search engine. And I know that I'm sure most of us are familiar with most of those search engines, but I'm talking about the type of search engine to where if you want to set that for your home page, and you go to your home page and you're able to receive the latest weather reports, and also about any of the news headlines, or anything else that you want to stay posted about, updated about, and all. But I just really think though that there are some search engines out there that use cookies, and also just privacy rights and all that. But still that I know that whenever you do use these search engines, though, it sure seems that way. That there are some search engines that do not, I'm like, that are not either not supported, or that certain links are not coming up. And you want to know too that like the URL links, and then as well as other things that you cannot see, and the company or companies ask you to go to our website and check our fill out that click on the link that's on our website. And some people might say that, well, I don't see that link that you're talking about. And so that that can be very frustrating. But still but I have right here these sketches right here talking for man in space. And I know that like the top up for that life.com, talk about for the life of magazines and talk about the Explorer for Man in space, but I'm using this right here as example of like a little navigation homepage for a website right here, and it's like people may think is that yeah, if you want to, I was thinking instead of creating like a little artboard of something that says web search or something like that, just go ahead and use this right here. But I tell you one thing, though, that there are different web search engines that you can use. That there's Next. I think Netscape. I think it's the other one, or something like that. But it sure seems that way to where that whenever you do search, or even from your phone, even though if you do go ahead and enter a web search, though, any source of data on a web search, though, it sure seems that way to where you may not get the same results as compared to if you do use maybe Edge, or maybe if you do maybe download, I think, Mozilla or something like that. I'm like, oh yeah, if we've heard of all these different web browsers and different links and hyperlinks, and so yeah, it sure seems that way to where that when we give this data science a try, if we try to go to the website and you're likely thinking is to where it's not pulling up the same information as compared to whenever you tried on Chrome and even whenever you tried on Internet Explorer, and so that's why it sure seems that way to where that yeah that number one though that your system's going to be asking you about setting the default browser, and whenever you do set the default browser, I'm like, if that really makes a difference or not, they probably say is to where, well, really, that if you do set that as your default browser, then chances are that, a lot of your search history will come on along with hashtags, with tags, and also other bookmarks. So my bookmarks will probably be more visible for any recent sites that you've gone to recently, and so that's why it sure seems that way to where that your first experience kind of goes by is toward that everything all looks black and white until you get it all figured out, until it starts appearing in color. But really, that it sure seems that way that when we think about a search engine, though, that a lot of things that maybe you don't quite understand, or you do understand it, but you're just trying to get the system to cooperate and all that. And so it's like, that whenever you're visiting a website, though, or just trying to figure out something, or trying to train somebody on how to use something, and it sure seems that way to where that, really try not to make it any harder than what it really is. But if we're talking about using these websites for like registering for maybe for doctor's appointments or anything like that, that everybody else might say too, that try to make it a little bit more simple to where that links, URL links that are shared, and a few of them are even like on Fox News and CBS News, websites, and those news websites will probably say that you can go ahead and go to their websites, and you can click on a link on above that tab right there, and so it sure seems that way that if they think that if that makes it easier, or go to our Facebook page, you'll be able to find it there. So yeah, that there are simpler ways of how to complete an online application. But I tell you one thing, though, that whenever it comes to figuring out the search engines, though, that can really be frustrating, especially that whenever you're trying to visit the site, though, and let's just say that if you're trying to get it taken care of within 15 or 20 minutes, it seems like it's just not going to happen, just because that, well, it's not doing the same thing. I'm like, that in order to be able to get the systems to cooperate and coordinate with each other, it sure seems that way to where people may say that, you just feel like I say that, voila, well, how do you zoom in and all, but so yeah, it sure seems that way to where that whenever you're trying to get something working, though, that it's like, that you pretty much, it seems like to almost all the time that you had to spend more time with it just to try and get it to work, or maybe talk to the experts about that, whichever. But at the time, it's like whenever you go to these search engines and type in a URL link or something like that, if you go to the homepage navigation pane or somewhere like that, and find out that the videos are not working, or that this that the headlines on my this tab is not showing up on my so a lot of times everybody else might even say too that one of the reasons is because your search engine is not supportive with or for anything else, such as for what search engine that you're using. That why is it that some of those some of the data that's on the website is not visible? Maybe because the search engines that you're using. But I really don't know if that has anything to do with the process. But still, there are some search engines that are faster than others. But all I can say is that based on my experience, though, it's like whenever you do visit a website, or whenever you do like a Google search, that it seems like that you're going to come up with different results, and most of the time, if it is the same results, and it's possible that you may have to download a file and export a file, open it up with a different program, or maybe attach it to the email or anything else that you gotta do. And so it sure seems that way, to where that really, what's the difference between looking at a draft and maybe looking at actually something that's already done and ready to be published, whichever. But I just really think, though, that whenever we look at something like this right here, and you got the zoom control right here, and you're likely wondering that whenever you go to the home page, though, that a few things that are visible, but it's not allowing you to click on anything, or you go to the home page, and all that you really see is that you don't see any links or tabs that you can click on or something like that. So a lot of times it's like based on the search engines that you're using, that it sure seems that way, to where that number one, know what search engine are you using, and on the other hand, that if you may have to refresh your browser so that we can search again, so that way that information can come up. So it's like I'm like, at the time you want to know too that those first three steps that you just did, how come that they're not showing up? And then maybe if you try the second time, maybe let's just say if you try again in 3 hours and find out that it's doing something different. So it's like doing a study about data science, you want to know too that why is it that it's doing something a little bit different this next time? You wait 3 hours and it's showing something different, and that's why it sure seems that way, to where just to make it just a little bit more simple, though, it's like anybody are probably thinking too that the more time you spend on something, and it sure seems that way, to where that you feel more confident, maybe the more that you spend learning about something. But at the time, it's like if you're going to be multitasking, that you don't really have a whole lot of time really to be fiddling around with that tab is not showing up on my side, or what's this or what's that, where I don't know why that came up. But still, that based on my experience, though, it sure seems that way, that that whenever you go to these websites, though, it's like whenever you do, if you're trying to promote your work to a certain website or publish it online, that a lot of stuff that maybe you don't quite understand, or you understand some of it, but at the same time, it's like you want to know too is that just to understand just a little bit, if it's the web browser, or just that there's technical problems going on, or whichever it could be. But at the time, it's like whenever you do learn, I'm like look at these web browsers, and at the time it sure seems that way, to where that you're always going to learn something new, especially. But when we talk about the search engines, though, that just to kind of be familiar with them, because there are some of them that say that you may not even have to sign in this next time. Your information should be saved. All you gotta do is just sign in, or you just go to your page, your bookmarks, and then that you'll take you straight there. But other than that, the way I think about it too, though, that whenever it comes to learning something new, though, that you're probably thinking is that whenever you do something the first time, it's going to maybe do something different the next time you go there, and that something different is going to be just a little bit harder, and something that's going to be a little bit more simpler as well, and so that's why it sure seems that way. Yeah, especially if you're multitasking, you don't really want those problems to come up whenever you're multitasking. So half the time, it sure seems that way. Just to make it a little bit more simpler. Like everybody else will probably say that's whenever emails come around, and if it's really best to go ahead and create desktop shortcuts. Shortcuts on your desktop, and shortcuts, and also bookmarks. Bookmark a page just to make it a little bit more simpler, and so that's why it seems like that almost everybody else would say that, you would not think that it would take 5 hours just to be able to get everything all working properly. And you're probably thinking that to where that, anything that you see on a lot of these advertisements, though, are going to say that, hey, that, this should only take 5 minutes of your time. Well, unfortunately, some people may have experienced differently. Some may say that it takes up to 3 hours, depending on what you gotta do. And if you're trying to register, that's different. If you're trying to sign up or register, or just read just for like a good starters kit, I'm like, just to review it within 5 minutes or whichever. But I'm like, it sure seems that way to where that you're going to the actual websites. Though, is that the same thing as looking at a few black and white pictures? Or if it's or a few drafts or anything like that, or it's just another way of knowing that if you're familiar with what it does whenever there's a technical error, and then also that whenever everything seems to be working a little bit more better. But I just really think, though, that whenever it comes to search engines, though, that whenever you study a little bit more of them, that it's like, that there are some search engines that are faster than others. But one thing that I remember about most of them was the fact about that shortcuts. There are shortcuts that you can create. There are tabs that you can set. It'll take you directly to Facebook. It'll take you directly to Instagram websites. So it's like that. First of all, they'll say that if you're at your own personal computer, or if you're at a public computer like at a library, that they'll tell you that you got to make sure that you sign in and sign out if you're using a public computer, or any source of system or device that you trust, and so that's why it sure seems that way. That whenever we talk about search engines, though, that at least to expect where the fact about if you're trying to take care of something real important, though, I'm like, it sure seems that way to where you just really need to know about the whole process of how it all works and all that. But I just really think, though, that learning something new about websites, though, and then the search engines that you're using, and it's like, number one, whenever you go there, it's like, if you go there from your computer, if you go ahead and set like a certain, like Firefox as your main search engine, and it will take you to the home page, and you can actually navigate through other websites, and maybe links that you click on, and all that you can navigate with. But anyway, you got right here, a few black and white pictures right here. But I just really think, though, that you're just learning the whole process of it. And like anybody, think that if you can spend at least 3 hours, learn a few of the basics, and go from there. But if anything, say at least an hour, huh? At least an hour is what's asked for. But anyway, I say for talking about for good advice, about learning about the World Wide Web.